Welcome everyone to our information session on the JEG400 401 internship. We are going to be presenting information today about the internship itself as well as the application process. I am here. My name is Dr. Nicole Laliberté. I'm professor in the geography department, and I am here with Alina Cheng, who is an officer in the experiential learning department. And so she will be working with us. Alina, do you want to say hi before we get started?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming to today's session, and I look forward to sharing this information with you, and I hope you apply to the course.
All right. So I just want to give you a couple of really broad strokes before we get started. And the first is that this internship changes every year. The students that we have, the interests that they have, change and affect the types of partners that we work with. So for us, it is a growing, changing, evolving process. And if you are part of the program, then you get to shape that and have your interest be taken into consideration in terms of what the internship program looks like for that year. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. For now, a little bit of history about the program. So the internship program, and there we go, was started by Dr. Barb Merck, who was a force to be reckoned with in this department. And we like to take the moment to appreciate the work that she did, because without her, not only would we not have an internship program in this department, because she's the one who started it, but she's the one who created the foundation for the experiential education office and offerings across the campus. And so we are very proud to say that it is our department that has spurred this through the work of Dr. Merck. And she started this program many, many years ago, and I am very proud to have taken it on at this point and be able to continue. So what we're going to do today is Alina is going to sort of walk us through some key logistics about the internship program. And then I'll offer a few more comments, and then we'll open it up for questions, because often it's the questions that get us into important details. So with that, Alina, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Laliberté. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Alina Cheng Bunting, and I'm an experiential learning officer in the experiential education unit. That's in the office of the dean here at UTM. Sometimes we refer to the experiential education unit as the EEU. So if you hear me say that, that's what I'm referring to. So let's dive into what is experiential learning. Experiential learning is what we say as learning by doing or learning through experience. It allows students to build upon what is learned in class by applying this learning and knowledge to real-world contexts. So through experiential learning, students have the opportunity to not only apply subject-specific knowledge and skills within their work environment, but also to develop professional skills, including cover letter and resume writing, networking, and interviewing. Through all of these experiences, students develop their written and oral communication skills, as well as learn how to market themselves in an increasingly competitive work environment. There are many benefits to experiential learning. For example, students gain practical experience to enhance their resume. Experiential learning allows students to increase their interest and engagement in their program of study, and it helps students to build new relationships and develop contacts to support their career ambitions through networking. And finally, it further provides transferable skills such as oral and written communication skills, public speaking, and leadership. Not only that, but a lot of students have mentioned that one of the most valuable things that they have experienced through these opportunities is just learning how to work in an office setting or learning how to work with a wider team with a hierarchy setting. So definitely keep that in mind as we discuss these opportunities a little further. The Experiential Education Unit, also known as the EEU, serves as an administrative resource for curricular experiential learning opportunities on campus. We support academic units in the creation, expansion, and sustainable implementation of experiential learning opportunities in courses that can count towards a student's program and/or degree. Our unit also offers a platform for advertising experiential learning initiatives to students throughout the academic year. For example, the Experiential Education Fair is a 2-day annual event that is a great opportunity for students to network with staff, faculty, and community partners to discover ways to enrich their university experience. On day 1 of the fair, students can visit a variety of tables and attend information sessions on a diverse range of experiential learning offerings. On day 2 of the fair, students who are participating in the Research Opportunity Program, or ROP, will have the opportunity to present their research at the Undergraduate Research Showcase. The EEU supports 4 core programs for experiential learning, and these are academic internships, such as this course, community engaged learning, the Research Opportunity Program, and the UTM Co-op Internship Program. In academic internships, students complete 100 to 200 hours of placement work for credit while completing other academic courses. Community engaged learning opportunities are 4-credit courses that enable students to engage with the community and enrich their academic experience through project-based work. The Research Opportunity Program, or ROP, allows students to work one-on-one with a faculty member on cutting-edge research for academic credit. And the applications will open in February and close in March. And then finally, the University of Toronto Mississauga Co-op Internship Program, which is also known as the UTM CIP. It's our newest edition, and it's available for students enrolled in eligible programs of study. And students complete a 12 or 16-month work placement and receive a notation on their transcript upon the completion of the program. This course, JEG400 and JEG401, is what we call the matching model course. So in a matching model course, students are matched with partner organizations based on their academic background and interests, as well as the specific needs and requirements of partner organizations. When making a match, the experiential learning officer for the course considers if the available placement sites based on participating partner organizations align with the course and the course objectives, the course instructor's expectations in regards to the student learning outcomes and the nature of the work proposed by the placement site, and the student's best skills and suitability for specific placement sites. So that's all something that goes into the consideration for what would make a good match for which student. And best practices are taken to ensure that successful matches are provided. However, I do want to just note here that there are no guarantees that the type of placement that you receive is, exactly what you're looking for. And there's also no guarantees that you do receive a placement opportunity. I would say that it's not very likely. I don't really get a lot of cases like that. But I do have to just say it just in case, sometimes things don't work out and we do everything in our power to be able to make that possible. But sometimes, something just happens where a partner has to drop the program for whatever reason. Again, very unlikely. I haven't had that many times in all the years I've been doing this, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, so for this course, JEG 400 and 401, the course requires a total of 200 hours of placement work, which amounts to approximately 8 to 10 hours of work per week. Generally, all placements conducted as part of an academic internship course are to be performed within regular business hours, and that means usually between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Sometimes I say there's a little bit of flexibility, like you can say 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. However, the exact timing will be determined upon the mutual agreement between you and your supervisor. And if your supervisor asks you about regular after hours work or weekend work, please let Professor Laliberté and I know so that we are aware of what their expectations are. And also, if you're to be on site during, the off hours, we just want to make sure that for safety purposes, everyone knows where you are. When you're creating your timetable for the academic year, we recommend structuring your schedule so that all placement hours can be completed in one full day or 2 half days if possible. The reason why we suggest this is because I do get quite a few students who say, oh, well, I have a remote placement. I have a couple of hours in between 2 classes on a Monday, and I'll just do 2 hours of work then. And then, oh, I've got an hour free on Tuesday, so I'll do an hour of work then. So when you do your placement work sort of piecemeal like that, it makes it really difficult to track how many hours you're completing each week. And we really do want you to hit 8 to 10 to make sure that you're on track for the year. So at the halfway point, we'll check in with you to make sure you're close to hitting 100 hours, and then we'll want you to be hitting the 200 hours near the end of March. So with that in mind, it just makes it easier to say, oh, every Thursday I do 8 hours of placement work, and therefore I know every week I hit 8 hours versus, oh, it's already Thursday and I've only done 2 hours of work this week. How am I going to fit the rest in? So that's the reasoning for that. When you're completing your placement hours, we use what we call a work activity log, and that is a tracker to input all of your hours. And also, you need to submit that as part of the final assignment. It gets signed by your supervisor, and then you need to submit it for the course. The work activity log, on it, you can't count your breaks or your lunch. It can only be time that you spend doing actual work, and also time traveling, time that is taken to travel to and from the placement site does not go on the work activity log. That's just your morning commute. And also any time that you use to work on any course specific assignments cannot be counted on the work activity log either. Okay. We can definitely go over questions at the end, so you can feel free if you have any questions about any of this to please just pop them in the chat now, or at the end you can unmute yourself and we can discuss it further. So once your internship has been confirmed, there are two important forms that must be completed if you have an unpaid placement. So the first one is the UTM Protection of Confidential Information Agreement. This is a document that provides important information on the university's expectations with regard to confidential information. While you're on placement, students must abide by all confidentiality parameters outlined by the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, or FIPA. And this form indicates what is considered to be confidential information and how you, as internship students, are responsible for protecting this information. The second form is the Student Declaration of Understanding. This is a document that provides important information on insurance coverage, safety, and the process for reporting any workplace injuries while participating in an unpaid work placement. While on placement, you are provided with insurance coverage by the university, and this form helps the EEU facilitate the coverage. So these forms get sent to you via email or could be submitted through the assignments tab in Quarkus when your internship is confirmed, but only if you're doing unpaid placement work, which for the most part, all the placements in this course are. And then once completed, you'll need to return these documents to myself before starting placement work. That's a really important aspect of it. Please note that all documentation, needs to be completed in a timely manner, and I will be chasing you if I don't receive your forms on time. All right, just a few notes about safety. So in the event of an accident or injury while on placement, please inform the placement site supervisor immediately and seek medical attention if needed. Complete any accident or injury reporting forms that are site-specific if requested, and please provide completed site-specific forms to Professor Laliberté and I for our records. And you must immediately report all workplace injuries or illnesses to your placement employer, to myself, and to Professor Laliberté. Additional important information on workplace safety can be viewed on the Experiential Education Unit's website, which I've linked here. For more information on legislation and external policies, please see the Office of the Vice Provost Students Placement page, linked here as well. And then also just want to say that you should note that any students should inform Professor Laliberté and I if they become aware of placement circumstances which are unsafe, and students have the right to refuse unsafe work immediately. So please do keep that in mind. Other important items to note regarding your internship placement are as follows. So if you're facing scheduling challenges, fall behind on your hours, or would like consultation on planning your hours, I'm available to assist you in creating what we call a work hours plan to help keep you on track for successfully reaching your 200-hour requirement. And then should your supervisor provide you with any documentation for signature at any time during your internship, or if you're invited to participate in a media interview, please inform Professor Laliberté and I prior to providing your signature. And we kindly ask that your supervisor also connect with us on this, because there have been instances where placement sites have asked students to sign these very lengthy legal documents, and it says, please sign here on behalf of the University of Toronto. And honestly, nobody here has that kind of signing authority, not you, not I, or Professor Laliberté. So we do need to double check these things. If you're currently if you start by performing a remote placement and then all of a sudden you're asked to start coming in person, then we ask that you inform us prior to visiting the placement site. And we ask that supervisors and internship students engage in at least one brief check-in meeting per each weekly placement shift. So when you're on your placement, you should be having at least one weekly check-in meeting, whether it be a 10-minute phone call or a 30-minute sit-down chat. We just want to make sure that you're connecting with your site supervisor on a regular basis and that communication is open for you to be able to ask questions and receive feedback. And then finally, please inform Professor Laliberté and I if there are any major changes to the placement duties or tasks at any point in time throughout the academic year, or if there are changes in supervision at all. We do know that participating in experiential learning opportunities can come with some additional costs, and that's why we've developed the Michael Lettieri Experiential Learning Bursaries Program. This is intended to help reduce barriers to student participation in eligible experiential learning courses by providing students in financial need with a resource to alleviate some of the costs associated with the course. Applications for the Experiential Learning Bursaries Program will open in September 2026. It's usually at the beginning of the month. And students who are enrolled in eligible experiential learning courses must submit an online application to be considered for the bursary. So there's 3 steps in the application process. I'll just go over very, very quickly. The first is to enroll in an eligible course, which this is. They'll then submit a cover sheet via a Microsoft form, and then satisfy a financial needs assessment by having approved OSAP status or by applying to the University of Toronto undergraduate grant portal system. So it does ask you to complete a budget, and that encompasses your expenses and your resources. And then it will further ask you what costs you anticipate to incur by participating in the experiential learning course. This application process allows you to identify all of that. So you definitely need to complete a full application in order to be eligible. And then consider the things that you would need for a bursary, like to cover. So do you have transportation costs that you will incur by traveling to and from the placement site? Do you need any sort of safety equipment that you're expected to buy on your own? Do you need professional attire? That kind of thing. So all of this gets us evaluated on a case-by-case basis. We do have a tutorial video available on our webpage for how to apply. So when the time is right, there's lots of support and resources available. And students typically hear back the following month. So if you apply in September, it's likely you'll hear back in October about the results. And here is the short link, which is uoft.me/elbursaries, and that is where all the information is housed. Okay, I know that I just threw so much information at you, but if you have any questions at all, I'm happy to answer anything that I can, and Professor Laliberté is here as well.
Thank you so much, Alina. As I said before, I'm going to take a moment and just add a few more details and context to give you a sense of the program. So as you can see, just from today, there are 2 of us here introducing you to the program. That's because when you are in the internship program, you have a support team. You have your supervisor who is on site with you, who is part of what your work placement is. You have Alina, who is there to help with all of the logistics and support in the relationship between the university and your placement site. And I am here as the academic course instructor for this course. And what does that mean? It means that we have, first of all, I help you if you have any questions about your internship, just as Alina does. So I'm here for that. But we also meet as a class online a few times, about every other week, or sometimes in the year it's every 3rd week. And we touch base and we see how things are going. We talk about issues and work together on possible solutions. But we also get a lot of support during those class sessions from the Career Center. And that is when, as Alina mentioned, you get support in relation to learning how to write a really strong resume, how to do networking effectively, how to be really put your best foot forward in an interview. So all those types of professional supports, we offer that through the class section of the course. There are some assignments that are attached with this as well, but all of them are designed to support your professional development, including reflection on your own work in the internship. So there are multiple ways in which we are engaging with you to see how things are going, from the work log activity to the reflections to class time and other types of check-ins. So you will see Alina and myself multiple times throughout the semester as we try to make sure that things are going well, that you have the supports you need, and that the internship is as successful for you as it possibly can be. So we together work to help support you in that. And so I wanted to make that clear of like why we are both here and how we think of this program in terms of our support for you. Another thing that students often ask is, where are the placements? Pretty solid question. As I said in the beginning, it does change year by year. Some of this has to do with supervisors being available one year, not available another year. Sometimes it has to do with student interests taking us in a new direction, looking for new supervisors that would be able to speak to that interest. Often we have people who are placed with municipal governments, in the private sector with companies, and also in the nonprofit sector with some organizations there as well. You can have in-person placements as well as remote, as Alina mentioned. And the in-person can be a variety of things. It might be office, but it also might be a lab space. It might include field work. And that's the one, and the application, sometimes people ask, like, why are you asking if I'm going to work in the summer if the course starts in September? Some of the placements, if they have field work, the field work is seasonal. And so if you want to be involved in that field work, you need to be involved in the summer when the data collection is actually happening. So it's the field work placements that might have an earlier start, but that's really specific. But it's in the application, so I wanted you to know. And one more thing in terms of the application, you may have found if you tried to enroll in the course that you are not actually able to enroll in the class. That is because we have to approve your enrollment. We have to make sure that not only have we interviewed you, gone through your application and think you'll be a good candidate, but that we've actually been able to make that match, to find a placement for you that works. Once the placement is confirmed, then you will be enrolled in the class. But until that time, it will be shown as pending or tentative or something along those lines. Okay, those are the main points that I wanted to make, again, just to give some context. So let's start in on the questions. We have one already in the chat. Is the program really competitive? Is it difficult to get into? So we usually have, we can take up to about 20 students each year. That varies a little bit, again, due to supervisors, whether or not we have enough matches for students. And it is competitive. However, it is, how do I want to say this? It's competitive, but it's not competitive in the sense of like there are 100 applications for the 20 spots. There are always more applications than we have spots, but it is not that like huge number to whittling it down to a tiny number. Usually it's at most double, like 40 applications for 20 spots, but usually not quite even that much. So that gives you a little bit of a sense. So it is competitive. We do have a limit. We do have to make decisions, but you have a really good chance of getting in if you are part of this program, if you've been doing well, and yeah, and you follow the steps as we go through. Often we're able to accept the majority of students who apply. Somebody else asked, if you don't have quite the full 15 credits yet and will still graduate next year, are you not eligible to apply? The 15 credit rule is a little bit of a legacy rule. And let me explain to you what the spirit of that rule is. And then you'll understand why my general answer to that question is the 15 credits isn't a strict rule. The spirit of the rule is that we want you to be in your last year. We want this to be part of your transition from undergraduate studies into the workforce. And so we want to make sure that you have enough credits that you are going to be able to graduate by the end of the year. And I've already talked to some students who have 14 credits, but they're planning to take a course over the summer. We take that into consideration. We really do look at each application individually and try and understand the context for it. We also don't tend to want students who are at like 19 credits because we want commitment that you will follow through with the internship for the full year. And if you don't need a full year of courses in order to graduate, we have found historically that that is when students are most likely to drop out in the middle. And that is not something that we encourage because it is detrimental to our relationships with our supervisors. It's not just about your relationship with your supervisor. These are long-term relationships that we have. And so we want to make sure we maintain those by having people who are representing UTM to the best that they are able. And so that 15 credit mark is there to basically say, will you be ready to graduate by the end of the year? Will you be here throughout the full year? Next question up is, what does the interview process look like? I've been talking a lot. Alina, would you like to start in on that one?
Yes, happy to. So the interview process it is an interview, but we like to consider it to be more of an informal discussion, a getting to know you chat. Sometimes there are things that you might put on your application that we might just have a question about and want to learn more. We want to get to know you and what you like and what you're interested in so that we can try and find a placement that suits you the best, that we can. Sometimes, we've had students who have said, oh, I've got a really strong background in GIS, but also like I really want to lean into my minor in something else. Is there some sort of way to combine the two? And so when we're able to have those discussions, then we're able to source placements that suit your individual needs a little bit better. Of course, like I said at the beginning, nothing is guaranteed, but I do really try my hardest to find the best matches for everyone.
And you all don't know this, but having worked with Alina for a few years now, she really does do a spectacular job at getting in there and trying to find. We had this last summer, we had quite a few supervisors who at the last minute decided they wouldn't be able to support the internship. And she still managed to find new supervisors to work with many of the students. So props up. I just want to give her credit because she deserves credit for that.
Thank you.
The other thing that you said that just made me think of this as well is in terms of what people want to get out of the internship. And this is something we will talk to you about during the interview conversation. Some folks want to say, okay, I know this is what I want to do. So I want an internship that's in this field so I can like get some experience, get a jump start on things. But other people say, I think I want to go in this direction. Like I'm pretty sure, but I'm a little bit curious about this one. So I want to do the internship in this so I can definitely rule out whether or not this is something I want to do. So there are multiple ways of approaching the type of placement you might be looking for. And just wanted to give you that range as well. Okay, someone else just asked, we have to submit the academic record. Does the GPA play a huge factor in the decision? The GPA is a part of the decision. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. One of the things that the GPA shows us is consistency, is reliability. We're not looking for straight A students necessarily. This is not something where you have to have a specific GPA or you're absolutely gone. However, if you do not have a strong GPA, it is helpful if we understand the context. Maybe you started in your first year, you didn't really understand university. Maybe you're a first generation university student and you were figuring it out and your first year marks were not very strong. but then you can see a progression from that point that you are improving and understanding and getting stronger. So your CGPA might not tell that full story, but we will give you the opportunity to give us that larger story, that larger context to understand where you're at and what you're hoping to gain from the experience.
I just wanted to ask, I hope you guys don't mind that I'm asking over the mic, if that's not a problem.
It's all good.
I just wanted to ask, do you guys have any like success stories or reviews from students who have previously taken, and I'm using the word course. I'm not too sure if it's a course or not, like if it's a credit or if does this entire program count as a credit? If that's the case, then is there a grade that's given and how does that whole thing work?
All right, you got a couple of layers to that question. So let me take it piece by piece, and if I miss one, please remind me. So it is a course. It is a Y course, so it's 1.0 credits. The academic piece with me is part of what turns it into the course. Because of the level of critical reflection that is expected, you're not just doing the work, but you're really thinking about how the work relates to your training at university, what you've learned, what you hope to do. So there's that critical reflection piece of it that does bring it into the academic or fit the academic criteria. In terms of asking of other people's reviews and such, I will be perfectly honest. I sent out an email to the other internship students from this year, but everybody, like the timing just didn't work today for folks. I got a few emails telling me, yeah, I have a class at that time, or I have something else going on. However, if you're interested, I would highly recommend that you go to the SAGE office or contact SAGE, which is the Student Association of Geography and Environment. And some of their officers are in the internship program right now. So they would be able to speak to you about it and give you a little bit of firsthand experience.
Well, thank you so
I can
much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I can also jump in with a couple of success stories, if that's okay. So I had a student who was in this course last year, and they were placed at the city of Mississauga in the planning department, and they are still there after graduation. The placement was just such a good fit that they asked her to stay on, and she agreed, happily accepted. And so I still get some communications from her from time to time saying that, she's really enjoying her placement now, full-time job there, which is wonderful to hear. Also, a little bit more of a personal story, but my husband 10 years ago took this course when he was an undergrad, and the placement that he took then is still a partner with the course today. It was a GIS placement, and he was able to use that experience he then applied to a post-grad certificate program at Fleming College in GIS, and now he works for a conservation authority as a GIS analyst. So the experience that you gain as part of this course and as part of your placement through the course is truly valuable, will serve you beyond graduation if that's something that you're interested in, or even if, you end up going down a little bit of a different route, the experience is huge.
That's really amazing to hear. Honestly, it's very reassuring knowing that this program's been going on for that long. So it's really nice to hear that. Thank you so much.
No
Yeah, I
problem.
think the program's been going for at least 20 years. We have because of Dr. Merck, who I mentioned in the beginning, we have a legacy that is quite strong in terms of our partnerships with people in the community and all of those relationships. Now, Alina mentioned somebody getting a job right off of the internship. There are those that happen, but they are not frequent. So I don't want people to get their hopes up for it. But I can say for another version of that is we had a student 2 years ago who was in the internship course and had a great experience, was all of a sudden I've lost what her placement was. Anyways, she and her supervisors clicked like nobody's business, and worked really well together. And she ended up afterwards going and getting another job, not where she did her internship, but the network connected to her internship and the recommendation that came from her internship was part of what helped her get that new position. So it's not just about the relationships that you're building in that one location, but the network of relationships that that internship helps you to then establish and build from. Someone just asked if letters of recommendation from professors are useful for the application. I would say in general, it is not something that we require for the application. However, if you feel like you have a something in your application that perhaps would be interpreted in a way that wouldn't be seen as particularly strong, but you have a professor who understands the context and can give us more understanding of it in terms of your academic ability and your commitment to the project, then you are welcome to do that. I don't say it's required because I don't want to put that work on all of the professors to write letters for everyone. Like, I'm being perfectly honest, it's a workload type of a thing. But if there's something specific about your application where you think having an instructor speak to it, you are welcome to. You can also just write that, like, hey, if you have any questions, you might want to talk to this professor, and I can reach out to them informally and have a conversation with them about it as well. Another thing that came up, it's not right now, but it's related to some of these things. Somebody was asking me about when they're writing their resume and the jobs that they've had do not apply to the kind of work they want to do for the internship. And the first thing I want to say to that is, of course, we expect that. That's why you're doing an internship, so you can get the entry-level experience to then build from. What we look for on the resume in terms of past jobs, in terms of volunteer engagement, leadership types of things, is a history of reliability is part of it. Like, did you hold your job for a long time? Do you have good working relationships? Do you take leadership positions? Like, these types of things give us a sense of you that, again, going back to the earlier question, goes beyond the CGPA. So CGPA is part of it, but we look at the broader picture of you and your experience and what you bring to the table. Any other questions? We are slowing down in the questions in the chat.
I guess I'm just gonna butt in one more time. I wanted to ask, like, based on the way that everything has been going, it sounds like it's a very personalized process in terms of, we tell you guys what it is that we're looking for, and you guys will go and find something based off that, right? So how formulated would you like our how do I put this? Like how well formed do you want our passions and like the things that we want to do in the future to be formed? Like, do you want exact jobs? Are you looking for positions? Or are you just looking for a general rough idea?
I'd lo
Yeah,
love
Alina, you
to
take that one.
I'd love to answer this one.
Yeah.
So we really want to get to know you and who you are and what your interests are. And we will do our very best to find something that is in line with what you think you want to do, what your current interests are, and where you see yourself sort of fitting in all of this. Um, I think the best thing from my perspective is if you come into this with an open mind. The reason why I say that is because even though I do try really hard to find a good fit for everyone, I mean, not only for your benefit, but also for the partner's benefits. Like, if they specifically need a GIS student, I will go and, match them with a GIS student. But maybe, for example, let's say you really are interested in the intersection of GIS and healthcare. Like, that's kind of niche, right? I can try my best to find something that suits that. But if I can't find something that's in healthcare, would you be interested in something that maybe is different? Like, would you be interested in something that's like, we had a partnership with a partner who worked in history. Would you be interested in history at all? But just would you be interested in conservation? Just trying to be a little bit open-minded. Sometimes I have students who I paired them up with something, and at first they say, that's not at all what I wanted to do. And I say, just please give it a chance, give it a shot, see how you like it. And at the end of the placement, every student has walked away saying, maybe that wasn't exactly what I was thinking of, but I'm really glad I went there and I had a really great opportunity to learn and grow. And I liked it better than I thought I would. Or maybe somebody does come in with a very specific idea of what they want to do, and they're like, oh, I really want to work in international policy or something like that. And then they get a placement in international policy. And then at the end of the semester, at the end of the year, they're saying, I thought I really wanted to do that, but at the end of it, it's not for me. And that's all part of this process. That is the entire purpose of the course, is to help you sort of get the experience, reflect and say, what did I like? What did I not like? What went well? What did not go well? And then readjust the sails and just keep going forward from there. I hope that helps.
I think I might add to it just a tiny bit, to the question of like, how prepared should you have? If you come in with like, this is the job that I want in the future, that's great. But it's very unlikely that we can get exactly that internship. So what we'll do then is say, okay, what is it about that job that you're excited about? What are the qualities of it? What are the values of it? What are the aspects of it? And so if you are into GIS and healthcare, then we might pick those things apart and say, okay, so if you had the option between a placement that focused on GIS and a placement that focused on public health, but they weren't mixed, which of those would you value more? So we sort of try to get a sense of how we could work with your interests, but have them be malleable enough to adjust to the options that are actually available.
Oh, that's really good to know. Yeah, that was really helpful because I'm kind of at that stage where like I don't know what I want to do. I just have a whole bunch of passion and I don't know what to do with it. So hearing that you guys would be there to kind of guide me, that's really reassuring. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I want to say on behalf of all undergraduate students who don't know quite what they're doing, because I was one of them, I think it's important to allow the process to unfold, to acknowledge your passions, to follow them, to see what paths they take you down, and to like just be open to that. Some people go in knowing what they want. Many of us find what works for us over time. I certainly never intended to be a professor. This was not on my bingo card of future professions. So you never know what is going to come in the future. Um, Alina, there's one in the chat that I think is good for you.
Yes. Okay. So this question is talking about for international students, do the unpaid placement hours count towards the off-campus work limit by the IRCC? So this one I do actually recommend if you're an international student and you're going to be doing the course, it shouldn't be a problem. But I always do suggest making an appointment with the International Education Center, the IEC on campus, just to make sure that whatever your unique circumstances are, everything just, fits into that. Because they have a lot of different parameters that they need to ensure that this fits into. So I have had lots of international students do these opportunities before with no problem. I just want to make sure that whatever your circumstances are, that you're able to as well. Also, could you clarify whether international students are eligible for the bursaries or not? International students are welcome to apply for the bursaries. They're evaluated based on a financial needs base. So it does sort of work in collaboration with the Office of the Registrar and financial aid. So just submit your application and see what comes of it.
One other thing I'm going to mention as we're in a little lull of questions um, is in terms of like that transition from how things function at the university to how things function at a work site. There's quite a few things that are different between these systems, as you might imagine. And one of them has to do with accommodations and accessibility. So if you have accommodations through the accessibility office here on campus, those apply to your classes and to your classwork. They do not apply to your work placement. However, if you know what kinds of supports are useful to you, we ask that you talk with us about that so that we can help find a placement that will work best for you. If you just assume that your accommodations are going to cover you into the workplace, you will be disappointed and it will get a bit confusing as we try and figure out how to best support you and how to meet the supervisor's needs as well. So we just ask for you to help us navigate that to make sure that everybody is supported.
I'd also like to add on to that. It's upon the student to decide to disclose any accessibility accommodations that they might need. So if we receive that information as part of your course, we will not be passing that information on to the placement supervisors at all.
Yeah, it is voluntary for you to share that with us. It just helps us support you. But as Alina says, we don't share it. We just do our best to support you. Any other questions? Anything lingering out there?
And of course, if you have any questions that come up after this information session, I've put our email addresses on the slide here. So you're welcome to reach out at any point with any questions that you may have.
And the applications are open and ready. I already have submissions that have come in. Deadline is April 15th. So we wanted to give you time after classes had ended to get the applications in. And we will most likely be doing interviews in early May. So just to give you a sense of the timeline for how we approach these things. Okay, I think with that, we might close today's session, but thank you all for coming. Thank you for the really wonderful questions. And as Alina said, if anything else comes up, please feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we are happy to answer your questions to the best of our ability. All right, and I'm going to stop recording right now.